Hey guys, Hoof here again. Today we're playing some more Space Engineers. Um, Deviated from playing on our survival map to playing around in creative mode, coming up with a couple rovers and different ideas for what could be possibly be used the most in a survival situation. And I decided that a transportation rover would be the most useful thing um, to start out with. It's got 7 large cargo containers, a hydrogen tank, an oxygen tank, and an um, oxygen refinery in there as well. Um, I have the rover cockpit mod. I really like it, but it does not suit this ship, so I'm going to be doing something different with that all in the future. But um, it gets around really well. It's got 5 axles, which is what I personally like to use um, because it handles really well. I also add thrusters onto these larger builds because when you're trying to climb a hill or something like that, you just don't have the traction or the power, and some thrusters to help push you up always helps. Um, I've got this ship loaded up. I've got one that's loaded and one that is empty. We'll play around with both. I'll give you a short tour of it real fast here though first. So, as you can see, you got your cryo chamber, your med bay when you first step into the ship. You also have your hydrogen tank, and then you can see you got the cargo containers on down the side there. You got your reactor, your oxygen, and then the batteries are strung out along the center of the ship here. Um, I have a small electronics panel mod, which allows you to place small blocks on your large block builds. This is great because you can make your programmable block and your timer block and antenna take up a whole lot less space. And as many of you know, the antenna is a really big, cumbersome um, pain to try and find a good place to put. So, um, and down here we have what's going to be a better cockpit in the future. Um, I had a boarding ramp. It doesn't drop down near far enough. I'm going to have to figure out a better way to utilize that. And I think in the future as well with this ship, I'm going to raise the flight deck here up 1 block. And that'll open up a space underneath. I may even raise it up 2 more blocks because this thing handles really well. And that'll open up a lot more space to do some stuff for a cockpit and boarding ramps and stuff like that. So, but I'll give you the short and the sweet of how I set up all the axles. So when you go into your control panel here, I've got every single axle grouped separately in pairs, and all of them together. I also have the pistons and landing gear and weapons and anything you want to be able to turn off or adjust or use grouped up so it's nice and easy and you can drop it right in the G menu. But as far as my axles go, I leave it the default steering angle for your very front and very rear axle. Your second axle I always drop 2 degrees. This helps it handle better when you're turning because obviously your inside wheels aren't turning quite as quick. So, and that seems to work out pretty well. The center axles, I always set the steering angle to 0 and leave the steering selection on because I've noticed that when you turn the steering off on your center axle and you try to use it as a pivot point when you have 5 axles, it causes a little bit of glitchiness and jitteriness, so I always do that and it seems to alleviate that problem. Dampening I like to run around 50%. On the large ships I run my friction up around 75% and my power around 25%. This I adjust depending on what I'm doing. I haven't figured this one out quite yet, where it needs to be. In strength I always turn it up just high enough to raise your rover up and get up to your your height offset, so it holds it up nice. And this way, you're not bouncing and getting flung up into the air whenever you hit a bump. It allows your suspension to ride over the bumps and contour nicely. So, my height offset, I always leave it with a little bit of space. So if you go over a hole or something, it'll allow that wheel to drop down in there and help hold your rover nice and steady. So, on the contrary to that, my very front axle I have raised up one block higher than the rest of them. This um, helps it crawl through stuff and start climbing up hills a lot easier. That one I always max out the height offset to keep it down there. And then I have my strength, usually I have it turned up just a tiny bit because it takes a lot of abuse when you come flying over a hill and you drop into a dip. Your front wheels are the first ones to hit, so you want a little bit of strength there so you don't bottom out and start ripping stuff off the bottom of your ship. So let's go ahead and take this thing out for a spin here then. Let's see, we want to unlock our handbrake and undo our landing gear, so we'll reverse those pistons, switch the landing gear off, and we'll head out. Now this is the loaded ship. I figured that would be the best test of what this thing is capable of. Unloaded, it gets around really well. I was climbing up that hill in the background you see there pretty easily. So, but let's take this loaded ship out and see what it can do. Again, you're going to want to be using those thrusters when you need them. I try to keep them off because you can see fuel time, we have 15 days now. You flip those on, we're down to an hour. So I like to avoid using them as much as I possibly can. You really got to watch your speed when you're going down hills, because it will get run away from you if you're not careful. But as you can see, the suspension, it absorbs these hills and stuff quite well. I mean, it just dances over the terrain. It works really great. You gotta kind of take it easy when you come into some of these, but I mean, it absorbs it, rolls through it, and moves on forward without too much effort. Go ahead and grab the brakes and bring ourselves down this hill here. You can see the suspension it's doing a lot of work. It works really great. And I think I just seen something break underneath. I'm not sure. Nope, it looks like we're okay. So, but as you can see, you can get around some pretty unforgiving terrain with this thing, which is really nice. I'm gonna see just what kind of stuff we can climb over. And if you keep taking a look down there at our speed, this thing, I mean, we're moving along at a pretty good pace, considering. As you can see, we're coming up on a considerably rougher spot here, and it just right up over. It works great. Almost went over. I think we hit it a little bit too hard when we started, so. But we'll go ahead and cut ourselves in a this early direction. Avoid from getting down in there. We'll kick our thrusters on because we're going to need some power. Banging the bottom of the ship up a little bit. Not too bad though. So let's head up this hill here. Oop, we're going a little bit quick again. You really got to watch your speed, because you start going too fast and you start getting airborne, and then now you've lost your control. So let's see. Let's come around to the right here and see if we can't work our way up through here. I've got our thrusters on because our wheels just don't quite have enough power, and it's beginning to seem that our thrusters are the same way too. So let's turn our handbrake on. We'll drop our landing gear down as well, and let's play around with the axles a little bit. Let's turn our turn this up to about 80 and crank our power up. Let's double our power. Turn it up to 50%. Alright, we'll drop this down. Let's see if we can't work forward again here. It seems as though we do not have enough power. Interesting. So let's drop this down and lock ourselves up here again. Let's see what we do if we turn our power all the way up and our friction all the way up. Just see what it does. It would appear that we are moving forward again. Let's turn our thrusters off and see what it does. Not quite enough power, so with the thrusters on, we're getting enough power. So let's just see how she does. With that being said, I think I'm going to have to add some large thrusters on this thing, or a large thruster, or something. I do have room to add some more. Oh, there we go. See, we broke a wheel off. That's why I don't like cranking the power and the friction all the way up, because it just causes problems. So, but I'll leave you guys with this. I mean, there's a little bit of improvement. I'm going to play around with it more and see what I can come up with. I'm planning on putting this up on the workshop for anybody who wants it, but I got to do some work on it yet, as you guys can see. But considering this thing was loaded down about 60%, unloaded it's 550,000 kilograms. In here we've got almost 4,500,000 on here, so we've got like a lot of materials on this ship, and it's getting around pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave you guys with this. I'm gonna play around with this more. Maybe I'll put up another video when I get a better design put up. So this is Hoof signing off. Fly safe and have a good day.